Someone like Tom Smith made you notice him as soon as he walked into a room. Not only did his voice sound funny, but he also took broken cars and made people laugh while he did it. This is why a lot of people thought things were going his way. But the cameras didn't show how quickly things changed. Now comes the easy question that everyone asks. What went wrong with a man who used to look like he could do no wrong? The answer is much sadder than anyone thought it would be. What you need to know about Misfits Garage. You could watch Misfits Garage on the Discovery Channel. It was a reality show that grew out of the famous show Fast and Loud. A group of skilled workers liked the idea and decided to open their own shop after they left Gas Monkey Garage in Dallas, Texas. Tom Smith and Jordan Butler were two of those workers. Thomas Weeks and Scott McMillan also worked there. They started a new business together called Fired Up Garage. This was the main point of the show. Misfits Garage had its premiere on October 13, 2014. It was made by Pilgrim Studios, and Craig Peligian, Richard Rawlings, and Eddie Rowetter were the show's executive creators. Craig Kaufman was also the producer in charge of the Discovery Channel. Let's talk about Tom Smith now, because what we saw on TV is just as interesting as his real life. Tom was born in Ohio, but he moved to Georgia and spent a lot of his childhood there. Tom was always interested and active, even when he was a little boy. He liked taking things apart just to see how they worked. They were hard for him to put back together most of the time, but that didn't stop him. The urge to learn was always there in him. He wasn't afraid to mess up, either. Tom knew a lot about books and words. He went to a Georgia high school close to home, and even came in third place at the state spelling bee. Tom, on the other hand, never did what everyone else did. He often got into trouble because he liked to do things his own way. From a very young age, Tom worked with his uncle in the family shop, which is where he first became interested in cars. In fact, when he was about 10, he made a choice that became one of the most memorable events in his childhood. In 1974, Tom's uncle owned a Pontiac Granville, and Tom chose to take it for a drive one day. Because he was only a kid and had never driven before, this choice did not turn out well. The police pulled him over for joyriding while he was driving around, but he didn't stop. Instead, he crashed into the police car. No one was badly hurt, thank goodness, but Tom got a good old-fashioned spanking from his uncle when he got home, and that memory stuck with him. Tom moved in with his grandma when he was 12 years old. When he finished high school, he went back to Ohio and opened a car shop in a rough part of town. At this time, he was surrounded by Chevy fans. Tom didn't follow the crowd. Instead, he got a 1967 Ford Galaxy XL convertible. When asked why, his answer was one that won't be forgotten. He told me not to take a Chevy over a cliff with him. So, I bought a Ford. Tom was married and had a child at this point. When Tom was young, Carl Parsons, a master mechanic, known in Ohio race circles for being able to get the most power out of an engine, had a big impact on his life. Carl thought Tom had a lot of promise, so he took him under his wing and taught him how to build and fix cars. Tom also liked to figure things out, and he often said that fixing cars was one of his favorite things to do. He once said that he feels bad for mechanics these days because it's so hard to figure out computer problems like it was when engines were simple and beautiful. Tom then said that you still have to reset a computer when you do something as easy as fixing brakes. When you opened the hood back then, motors looked like works of art. He missed how great old cars looked and how well they were made. Tom moved around a lot for a while and even worked on TV towers before he finally made it to Texas. He learned how to be a good driver at Driver's Edge in Texas, where he worked on hot rods for about 4 years. He became known for making cars easier to drive and better at what they were supposed to do to an unheard-of degree. Tom is the type of person who never makes content with average work. With every build, he tries to go further and make something better. His favorite cars were the 1964 Ford Thunderbolt and the 1965 Shelby Cobra. He worked on a lot of different cars over the years. Have you ever thought about why? Well, these cars are all about style and speed. He finally got to Gas Monkey Garage, which was a turning point in his trip. since his funny and unique attitude made him stand out on the Discovery show Fast and Loud, which millions of people loved. Tom became a part of it. But his time at Gas Monkey was over when he left the show and the shop. Tom didn't stay down, though. When Misfits Garage opened, he quickly found another chance and joined the new team at Fired Up Garage. He stayed true to his roots as a Ford guy, even though most of his co-workers liked Chevy car brands. Tom liked many types of cars, though. He talked about the Chrysler Findfa car age in the late 1950s and early 1960s with this artistic side. He really liked Virgil Exner's designs and thought the style, lines, and flow of those cars were unique. You should know that Tom is very good at dealing cars, but he also said he used to be a great drawer, and now he views himself as a good drawer. His art has taken up whole walls in friends' homes to make big works of art that surprised everyone, which sometimes took about 200 Sharpies. How Tom Smith has changed over time. The popular Discovery Channel show Fast and Loud has been on for 14 seasons from 2012 to 2020. After Gas Monkey Garage, Fast and Loud's custom car shop is Gas Monkey Garage. The shop and its owner, Richard Rawlings, became well known for building unique cars, who has been a strong part of the show all along. Remember that Tom used to work for Gas Monkey Garage? The story of Tom Smith's leaving Gas Monkey starts in 2014, when something out of the blue changed everything for him and Jordan Butler. When asked later, Tom told TMZ that the trouble began with Richard Rawlings' Rolls-Royce. The shop manager was very angry that Tom and Jordan let a customer take a picture next to the Rolls. They were confronted by the boss in a harsh way, and things quickly got worse. Instead, Tom yelled at the boss, and soon after, both he and Jordan were fired. Afterward, Richard told TMZ that they were making trouble at the shop, but Tom had a different opinion. He thought that things could have been done better, so much so that Jordan said in a Discovery Channel movie that it was the only time in his life he had ever been fired. He said that what the boss did was completely unreasonable. He also said it didn't make sense to be fired for calling your boss names. Fans of Misfits Garage know that there has always been trouble between the cast of the show and the Gas Monkey team. Since Misfits Garage first aired in 2014, this feud has been a big topic of conversation. People still don't know what started all the fighting. Since both shops worked on similar projects, it's easy to think it was just business rivalry. But the truth is that it was more than that. Tom Smith, on the other hand, changed after he was fired. At one point he said it was the best thing that ever happened to him. He even said he was like Bill Gates, who was fired before they became famous. Tom and Jordan made the choice to fix things. They joined forces with Scott McMillan, who had worked at Gas Monkey before, and Thomas Weeks, who was also a skilled mechanic. They started Fired Up Garage together, which led to the creation of Misfits Garage, a new show that debuted on the Discovery Channel in October. It may have sounded easy to open a new shop, but it wasn't. Fired Up Garage had to deal with a lot of problems right from the start. It wasn't as big as Gas Monkey and didn't have as many resources or fans, so it was hard to get customers and meet their needs. Things were already hard enough without having to deal with criticism and backlash from die-hard, Fast and Loud fans. After Tom and Jordan were fired, things between the two businesses got worse because it became personal. The founders picked the name Fired Up Garage so that the initials would form the letters FU, which many people saw as a direct message to their old boss. The name of the show, Misfits Garage, also made it clear that these were people who didn't fit with Richard's plans for Gas Monkey. People from both sides talked back and forth in public, in interviews, and on social media. Richard Rawlings and the Odd Garage crew once said that the other group was lying and doing things that were not right. Even more people watched both shows because of these fights, which caused drama that fans closely watched. It also helped both shows become more famous because people were interested in what would happen next. There were also rumors that each garage was trying to hire workers from the other garage. The media made a lot of guesses about who would be the first to leave the ship. One of the biggest stories was about Aaron Kaufman, the well-known driver from Gas Monkey. A lot of people thought he might leave to join the team at Fired Up Garage, which was said to make Richard Rawlings nervous. What made you think Tom left and chose to open a new garage? Let's look at how much Tom really loved cars. Tom Smith really loves cars, because the metric system was meant to scare people and cause chaos. It would never have a metric bolt in it. Have you ever seen a mechanic who loved old cars so much that a single bolt would make him lose it? You can tell a lot about Tom Smith's attitude and the things that are most important to him from the way he talked in this episode. He was upset while working on an old engine. In the beginning, he said he had to take something off the motor. Then he talked about how surprised he was when he found what he thought was a strange situation. Tom talked about going out into this great land, he called it, great with pride, to look for new parts, but then he realized something wasn't right. To show how worried he was, he said, "I say," several times. This shows how strongly he felt about what he was seeing. What made him mad was that the motor he was working on had a 16mm bolt or fitting on it. Tom said this was a big surprise because a metric pin or thread should never be found on an old American engine. He knew that motors from that time were made using normal American sizes like 916 instead of metric ones. He wasn't just making a technical point when he talked about this. In addition, it showed how he felt about how the auto business had changed over time. His words showed that the metric system scared him, and that he thought it was hard to understand for engineers who were used to the American system. He thought that cars made in the past showed a certain level of skill, and that adding metric parts seemed like an extra step that wasn't needed. To make a funny point, Tom said that his mother had once told him that the metric system was bad. That's why he said it was something that could make everything worse. He used dramatic language to show how angry he was, saying that this could be the start of society falling apart, as if mixing measurement systems were a sign of chaos in the world of physics. His nature made him likely to exaggerate, and he often used humor and sarcasm to get his point across. To add to his angry rant about the metric system, Tom made a few more unorganized and emotional statements. He talked about getting signs about being a good person, having kidney bills, and sticking to certain values. This makes me think that he was thinking about how small changes can sometimes feel like they are connected to bigger problems in life. He then went back to talking about the bad guys and said they would be found, killed, brought back to life, and questioned. This is another example of how he often mixes fun and anger when he tries to explain a problem. He finally stopped his rage by making a joke about being sent to California. Then he made a funny comment about lunch, which lightened the mood, and told everyone that he wasn't angry, he was just upset about seeing something strange on a classic engine. Tom's rant was about how much he liked traditional ways of fixing and making cars, and he thought that seeing metric bolts on an old American motor went against everything those cars stood for. To Tom, cars were more than just tools. Putting in current things like metric measurements felt wrong because they were historical pieces. The sad story of Tom Smith. You might be asking what happened to Tom Smith and why we're still here. I think Tom Smith has one of the strangest personalities that Misfits Garage fans have seen. This became more clear with each episode. He is a funny and full of energy man. People often say he's a little strange, but there's no doubting how good he is as a mechanic. Over the years, his skills have taken him to many workshops. Tom's career reached a peak when he was asked to work on an AMC Gremlin from the 1970S. This was a huge job for him at the time. Most workers would have been happy when the car was done, but Tom wasn't happy with how it looked, and this made him do something he hadn't planned. As a test, he chose to turn the Gremlin into a makeshift boat. When he was done, he drove it straight into a lake. The car sank, which was a shame. As Tom watched it go under the water, his excitement turned to sadness because he had worked so hard on the build. Tom was more than just a good mechanic. He also made every room more interesting with his jokes and one-liners. People who liked the show often said that his sense of humor made him stand out. Even better, Tom has always been funny, so this wasn't just an act for the cameras. Many people think he is the funniest member of the Odd Garage crew. He has that side because he used to be a skilled stand-up comedian. You heard that right. Tom has played outside of the garage at a number of comedy clubs, such as the Dallas Improv Club. On occasion, he has even been on stage at the Manhattan Christie Comedy Club. Since everyone knows, one of the most talked about parts of Misfits Garage has been the competition between Fired Up Garage and Gas Monkey Garage, especially the tension with Richard Rawlings. People thought this was a real feud for a long time, and it gave the show a big subplot that a lot of people liked following. A lot of what fans saw, though, was staged for TV because it made the show more interesting to watch. Most of the big scenes were carefully planned behind the scenes, in large part because Richard Rawlings was involved in making the movie. He not only owned Gas Monkey Garage, but he was also an executive director and was even given credit for coming up with the ideas for the show. Richard agreed with a lot of the filming choices, and he owned the building where Fired Up Garage was set up. Richard still ran the room and had a lot of power over what happened on the show, even though Tom and his team wanted to show they were separate from Gas Monkey. Information from Top Speed says that Richard was also in charge of the money side of things, which gave him even more power over the whole process. Are you also thinking if the name Fired Up Garage really meant something? Well, you're about to find out. Fans talked a lot about the name because they thought it was meant to be an insult to Richard Rawlings. But Tom seems to care more about the truth. Tom wrote on his tools as a child, "Our customers have been satisfying us since 1973. This shows how much he wanted to open his own shop one day. Because of this, the name Fired Up meant something to him. He even dreamed of calling it F&U Garage. After leaving Gas Monkey, he finally had the chance to build a new garage. He gave it the name he had thought of years before. Even though the letters FU, Tom talked about it a lot because it reminded him of something from his childhood and the time when two of the most popular members were fired. Fans thought that Tom Smith and Jordan Butler's exit had something to do with how often they were late to work or how poorly they did their jobs. TMZ, on the other hand, said something different. They said that Tom and Jordan were fired because they let a fan take a picture next to Richard Rawlings' Rolls Royce, which the bosses thought was a big deal. When the boss spoke to them, things got heated. Tom used strong language to tell him to calm down. People didn't like this, and after a few hours, both guys were let go. Friends were shocked by what happened because Tom and Jordan were important to the team and had big friends on the show. Tom and Jordan went in a different direction after leaving Gas Monkey and joined Misfits Garage. Their goal was to show that fame and money were not the most important things in life, and that a group of skilled workers could make great cars even without the help of a big company like Gas Monkey Garage. To begin Fired Up Garage, they worked together with Scott McMillan and Thomas Weeks. Then, Misfits Garage added a new dynamic. The Misfits tried to prove themselves by taking on difficult builds, which showed fans their imagination and hard work in every episode. In some parts of the show, Richard Rawlings seemed to be collecting rent because he owned the building where Fired Up Garage was located. Many people would think that a garage as well known as Fired Up Garage would easily make a lot of money from fixing up cars on TV, but the truth is not like that at all. It costs a lot to run a business like this. And for Fired Up Garage to make about $100,000, 0 cents a month, just from restorations, they would have to finish at least 50 full car jobs in that month. It's not possible because each build takes a long time to finish. When you think about how much work and resources go into these projects, the effort is much greater than the reward. After that, the question is, how does Fired Up Garage make money? As with most TV shows, the money doesn't come from the work that's shown on camera, but from the people who watch the show. Companies pay a lot of money to have their commercials shown during a show, so the more people who watch it, the more important it is to advertisers. Misfits Garage had an average audience of about 1.3 million viewers per episode. This makes it appealing to marketers, who bring in a lot of money for the show through commercial deals. Kevin Clark, a key part of the Fired Up Garage team, became famous on Misfits Garage. Unlike many of his co-workers who worked on real cars from a young age, Kevin became interested in cars by playing with toy cars. Automobiles weren't very important to his family. In fact, his father thought they were all part of a Western plot. Even so, Kevin was crazy about cars and models. As an adult, you can still find him working on toy cars when he's not working on real cars in the yard. The catch is that the cars don't bring in much money because you don't make much money when you restore cars. According to the numbers, Fired Up Garage makes about $2,000, 0 cents, on average from each build. This is why TV watchers were so important to the business's survival. Another well-known team member is Thomas Weeks, who is known for both how much he knows about cars and how much he loves flying. A lot of people who watch may not know this, but Thomas has been in a lot of crashes and been hurt over the years. He wears a glove over one hand a lot because he has had a bulging disc in his wrist. He also has a deep cut on his chin from a metal rod. He fell into a spiked emission when he was only 4 years old, which was one of the first accidents in his life. The long list of accidents he's had shows how hard this job is on the body and how dangerous it is. The cast of Fired Up Garage has changed a lot since the show started, with some of the original members leaving over time. Jordan Butler finally left the garage, even though he helped Tom Smith start it. Another founder partner, Scott McMillan, also quit to focus on his own business, Scott Rod's Garage. Another name that later quit Fired Up Garage was Kevin Clark. He is said to have left because of all the drama that seemed to circle the show. These changes don't come as a surprise because this kind of business often has problems when money and egos get in the way. One of the things that has always drawn people to Misfits Garage is how creatively the show restores old cars and gives them new lives. Some fans of the show, on the other hand, thought the team sometimes went too far in their attempts to be different. Barama wrote for TV Overmind that one reason Misfits Garage didn't become as popular as some of its competitors was that the group didn't always treat some classic cars with the respect they deserved. She talked about an episode that made a lot of fans angry because a 1957 Chevy was cut up and turned into a gasser instead of being kept as a hot rod. Many people who love cars think that Chevys have a lot of history and meaning, so these choices did not sit well with them. It wasn't clear what would happen to the show after its 6th season, which started on May 2, 2018 with 13 episodes. Some people said that a 7th season would start in early 2020, but that never happened. And as of 2020, there was still no clear word that Misfits Garage would be back. A lot of people were interested in the show because of the uncertainty surrounding it and the exit of important characters like Jordan Butler. Reports say that Jordan quit during the 4th season because they didn't agree on how to bring in new partners and the chance of moving the shop. Some people believe that his departure from the team was staged for TV, but reports say it was more serious than what watchers saw on TV. Jordan didn't make a lot of noise after he left, and he even wrote on Facebook that he wasn't in touch with the rest of the group. Tom writes about his favorite car on Facebook, where you can find him. When he wrote about his dream Lamborghini, people laughed hysterically. Someone said, "Sure, it'll fit you perfectly." Someone else said, "He might get in, but it's the getting out again." Tom has always shown up in ways that many people did not expect, even when things were hard or changed. During the COVID-19 pandemic, when most of the world stopped moving, Tom kept his love of making people laugh alive by holding live comedy shows that reminded everyone of the funny things that made him famous in the first place. He has spent time away from the stage and the garage working to rescue and transport dogs in need, which shows that he cares deeply about more than just machines. Tom posted something on Facebook not long ago that made his fans laugh. And he said that he thought there might be a chance for him to go back to TV with his own show about changing cars. People who have been following his journey from the start were thrilled and filled with hope when they heard this news. That being said, it does leave one question unknown. Will Tom Smith finally get the fresh start he needs after everything he's been through? Today, what did you learn about him that was new? Type your ideas in the box below. Thanks for seeing. Please like, share, and subscribe to this channel if you liked this movie. Check out the other videos on your screen before you leave.